Ah yes, regional variants. They got introduced in Generation 7 with the Alolan Pokemon, like Raticate, Exeggutor, and Marowak to name a few, and they've been a fixture on new games ever since. Every single region, there is a new variant of a previous Pokemon, and honestly, I quite like it. I think it's a neat way to bring back an old Pokemon with a new coat of paint, and potentially a different and improved playstyle compared to the original variant from an earlier generation. And that is what this video is about. This video is about ranking every single regional variant, or well, at the very least, the final evolutions of them. If it evolves from a regional variant, that's what we're going to be using. To put things in perspective, I'm going to be dividing this video into 3 sections. These 3 sections determine the power gap between each group of regional variants. The ranking will be in order. However, it isn't set in stone, since different Pokemon do different things and opinions can change. Now, let's discuss the sections. But before that, Mismagius, Heartgold, Randomizer, Hardcore, Nuzlocke. Link in the description below. Anyways, firstly, we have Horrendous. These are the bad regional variants that you never want to use in a fight because they're an outright downgrade from their original counterpart, or both the counterparts and these variants are outright bad. Secondly, we have Pretty Good, where the regional forms are just that. These are the ones that you typically want to put on your team if you dislike it and are trying to win. Not very many would question using it in a battle, especially compared to what we have in Horrendous. Thirdly, we have Phenomenal, where these Pokemon are downright amazing. The best of the best even. If you're trying to win, these Pokemon are your best bet because they're downright amazing. Definitely the least crowded section, but the power put on display is staggering. Lastly, we have Banworthy, which basically explains itself. These Pokemon are or should be banned, or there's something about them that needs to go. So with that, let's begin. And we're gonna go from least to greatest. So let's start with Horrendous. Normally, I go relatively in-depth here, but there are a lot of Pokemon on this list. Way more than 10. And we don't have all day. So we're gonna make these pretty quick. Luckily, for us, and for Alolan Persian, it's very easy to tell why this Pokemon is bad. Sadly, being a Persian form didn't give it much to work with. And while the ability Fur Coat is nice, along with solid coverage, it isn't worth the horrifically bad stat pool. Normal and Dark are just horribly complementary types. Honestly, I hold nothing but ill will towards Alolan Raticate. They took away Guts from it, took away 20 base speed and 10 base attack, and they put it in bulk. This would be fine if it actually used this bulk well, but its stats are so meager now with nothing stand out about it that it may as well not be a Pokemon. The only thing that this thing has going for it over regular Raticate is that Sucker Punch is now Stab, so it is a bit stronger. But that's not worth every other downside. In the underrated Ice-type video, I mentioned that Hisui and Avalugg was bad, but I don't think I bothered to explain why. Luckily, why it's bad is incredibly obvious. Ice and Rock do not work well together. Any fighting or steel move, both incredibly common, will break your Iceberg pretty quickly. To make matters even worse, its already low special defense stat, they removed 10 of it. Talk about overbalancing. Don't use this unless you just really wanted to use all of the noble Pokemon in battle. When you're based off of a bad Pokemon, odds are you're just going to be bad. This applies to Galarian Rapidash. Its stats are middling, it doesn't hit hard enough, it isn't fast enough, it's not going to be doing very much hit taking. Pastel Veil is a nice ability to beat toxic Pokemon, and that is neat and all, but it isn't enough to make it worth using. It has solid coverage in Swords Dance to boost its attacks, but too much of the game threatens it for that to be feasible. They seem to have forgot what makes Dugtrio good. What made Dugtrio good was Arena Trap, which meant that it became one of the best revenge killers in the game. Without it, it's useless. So what does that make Wugtrio? Useless. It does minuscule damage, it's incredibly frail, and even with that speed, it's not doing much. Its abilities also suck. The issue with Hisui and Electrode is that while you're no longer weak to ground, with the sole exception of fighting, you're weak to everything grasses. This is very much just Electrode, but now it has grass moves, and is now weak to more stuff. So how good is Electrode? It isn't. It's fast, but that's about it. Maybe a Choice Specs Chloroblast might hurt, but I wouldn't try it. This is another situation where they forgot what makes Dugtrio good. Allowing Dugtrio losing 10 of its speed to gain 10 defense when it isn't going to make use of that is appalling. And it also doesn't have Arena Trap. Why is it better than Wugtrio? Because it gets Sand Force. That's it. It at least can be used somewhere, albeit it's not very good there either. Not only are there better Slush Rushers than Alolan Sandslash, but Alolan Sandslash wouldn't be that good even if it were the only Slush Rusher. Base 100 attack isn't sweeping any teams, and base 120 physical defense doesn't mean much when you have some rather abhorrent weaknesses. Don't go near this one. Now we're on to the pretty good category. I've covered Galarian Stunfisk already in the underrated Steel-type video, so I'll keep this brief. It has great support moves, it can be irritating to deal with, and Mimicry is a funny, albeit not too good ability on it. It's at the bottom of pretty good because there are just better Pokemon on the list that aren't as gimmicky with the role they play. Cursula is a rather strange creature. It has weak armor, which doubles its speed when hit with the physical move, and it also has an ability called Perish Body, which gives a Perish Song effect to both Pokemon when it is hit by a physical move. Its base defense is 50, its HP is 60, and its speed is 30. These things aren't useful. What is useful is the base 145 special attack and 130 special defense. Well, I've covered this on the Ice-type video before, so I won't retread too much. Mr. Rime has good stats outside of its speed. It has Rapid Spin to compensate for its speed so it can be fast, Screen Cleaner to remove screens, Ice Body for hail teams, and it hits hard enough to warrant a team slot if you're willing to put in the extra effort to make it work. I could be wrong here for considering Alolan Executor to be better than Mr. Rime, but I have my reasons to believe this. I think Frisk and Harvest are both good abilities that are easy to use, and I think that Executor is bulky enough to function as a powerful bulky attacker with decent defenses and a base 125 special attack. Definitely one of the stronger Draco Meteors. I might be overvaluing Reneragus just to give the lad a chance, but I do think that it has some useful utility that's worth looking into that makes it slightly better than one would think. What are these tools? Well, it's got solid defenses, access to Stealth Rocks, Trick Room, Toxic Spikes, and Will-O-Wisp for utility, and for offenses it has stuff like Poltergeist, Body Press, and Earthquake. There are things to do with this Pokemon, but it's just a little hard to figure out what things it should be doing, especially with no pain split like Cofagrigus had. I am so glad that I finally get to talk about Persiker. I've honestly missed this little guy. While its VGC career has sadly been non-existent due to the fact that Steely's Spirit plus Make It Rain Goldango is a little too gimmicky compared to the high power of that metagame, and Goldango's immunity to Helping Hand, I still find Persiker to be a solid overall Pokemon. It's got a good defensive typing, it can act as a rock setter, as a pivot, as an offensive threat in Trick Room, and it can revenge kill weakened enemies with Fake Out. While not the best, I think that it's slightly better than Runerigus and Alolan Executor, if only because it's got less weaknesses to hold it back. I might be overvaluing Hisui and Decidueye just a smidgen, but I think it's an excellent wall breaker, and Scrappy gives it power it otherwise wouldn't have thanks to an Intimidate immunity and a way to hit ghosts without relying on knockoff in a read. Its solid attack and bulk alongside Roost would be a lot better if its typing wasn't defensively dog water. But offensively, with stuff like Taunt and Knockoff, and a good enough speed tier to outspeed defensive walls, it can function as a bit of a stall breaker. Although, whether or not it's good at it is an amazing question. Look, Hisui and Braviary absolutely catches my eye. While sheer force to boost its heat waves and psychics is nice and all, especially with the life orb, that would force you to run agility in order to get any speed out of this creature, and that's just not something I'm for. I like Esper Wing and Tinted Lens because Esper Wing attacks while increasing my speed, and Tinted Lens means that resists aren't real and they can't hurt me. Hisui and Braviary can absolutely function as a late game cleaner, because it may very well only need one turn to get that Esper Wing, and suddenly, your team is in a lot of trouble. Just hope you don't run into Booster Energy Iron Jugulus, or any Booster Speed Pokemon. Man, if Mycelium Might wasn't balanced and made Toedscruel go last, this Pokemon would easily be in Phenomenal at minimum. Potentially ban-worthy, because Fast Spore is very unhealthy. Wait, actually, I wonder if this can be neutralizing gassed. And if it can, does that mean there's a world where we see doubles core of Toedscruel plus Galarian Weezing? We will be looking into this matter, however niche it may be. Anyways though, yeah, it can ignore abilities to set status in exchange for going last, and it can also be a rather potent threat with stuff like Giga Drain and Earth Power, as well as Rapid Spin to remove those dang rocks. Its biggest issue is its ability is too balanced for a Gen 9 Pokemon, and its defensive typing is not great. These hold it back a lot. Swift Swim and Intimidate? Access to a move that is basically physical Venoshock with a coin toss chance to poison if you're on a dedicated Toxic Spikes team and don't feel like running Gunk Shot? Only one weakness, giving it a good defensive typing? Access to Destiny Bond if you're feeling cheeky? Swords Dance? This Pokemon has it all. It just happens that it has it all in a way that is perfectly balanced, because its speed doesn't make it the best Swift Swimmer, and its defenses, while alright on the physical side, aren't impenetrable on the special side. It's got some solid stuff going for it though, and it's definitely worth the team slot. I'm not about to pretend that Galarian Articuno has any other sets than Calm Mind, Agility, Stored Power, and your choice of Terra Fighting or Terra Fairy Terra Blast, depending on what you want to hit more. I've used it. It's really fun to use, and I'd say it's good enough to be right smack in the middle of this list, since either you outright win or you outright lose. No in between. And I'll tell ya, the dopamine when I outright win feels pretty good. Look, access to Thunder Wave, Cut Sapberry, and Stealth Rock, along with Sturdy to make sure that the plan comes together, is good, alright? It's a perfectly solid suicide lead. Now, if you want more from it than just me set rocks, me die, then allow me to point you in the direction of Rock Polish and Weakness Policy. But I can tell you, with Iron Thorns, or just other Pokemon to run Weakness Policy in a speed boosting move, you got better options. Stick to what works. This is absolutely propaganda. When you're ranking every single regional variant, some are probably gonna get put in places they don't deserve to be in. And maybe that's the case with Sirfetch'd. But I need you to hear me out, alright? Because this is very important. Access to First Impression for priority, and a means to absolutely destroy a Psychic type? That's nuts. Knockoff? That's nuts. A big attack and low speed for Trick Room? Sure, if you want. But all of that is too telegraphed. Too obvious. Choice Scarf, Scrappy, Close Combat Sirfetch'd, however, with 3 other moves of your choice, now that's a real set they won't see coming. I don't see what could possibly go wrong, so long as your opponent doesn't manage to get a speed boost at any point in the match. But with your 135 base attack, just don't let them set up. Source? Trust. I rate Obstagoon rather highly and think that it's secretly much better than people think it is. It has access to Obstruct, which is a better protect for it thanks to its ability to lower the opponent's physical defense, all while getting that Flame Orb going so you can use Facade and guarantee an Oko. Now that's something I'm all for. Combine this with a meaty, powerful, elite coverage pool of Fire Punch, Knockoff, Thunder Punch, Close Combat, and Cross Poison, and you got a lethal force of nature working for you. It's also got base 95 speed and Parting Shot, which means that not only can you punch a hole in an opponent's team at any time, but you can also get out of a bad matchup quicker than they use their precious fighting move. Hopefully. I mean, what do you want me to say that hasn't already been said about my surfer dude, Alolan Raichu? It's got insane coverage, solid special attack, but not solid enough to be good on its own. It's gotta go out for late night drinks with Tapu Koko first. Get that electric terrain set up, and then Alolan Raichu can come in and rising voltage until there isn't any enemies left, all while blitzing through with Surge Surfer to make sure no Scarfer in the universe can get the jump on it. However, Tapu Koko sadly can't always be around, and so it's gotta sometimes call Pinkerchin and begrudgingly asking it for a favor. Because we all know that Pinkerchin is one of those mons that if you hang out with them in public, people will give you weird looks. Iron Valiant, Iron Hands, and Iron Moth take a picture of it and start to spread gossip that you're hanging out with the wrong crowd, thus spoiling what was once a solid reputation. They turned Slowbro from an amazing physical wall and one of the most reliable stopgaps to a powerful physical wall in the some strange mixed attacker who, while it still has some bulk, doesn't make as good use of it. It's funny to use Quick Claw Quick Draw to try to go first with that shell sidearm, but it isn't worth it in practice. Originally, this was lower, much lower, but it did make people want to ban a whole item for a while alongside other threats, so it gets some recognition, even if I myself kinda think it's bad. I wonder what Galarian Mega Slowbro would be like though. I'm not going to do a segment today talking about every Tauros, so I'm just going to talk about the one I think is the best, and the one that is most clearly the best is the fire one. That's just a given. Intimidate, Will-O-Wisp, and Body Press make it an amazing physical tank. And if you're expecting a tank, they can surprise you by being offensive instead, and OHKOing a Pokemon you thought was good against its most common set. Pretty alright Pokemon, all things considered. Gee, I can't wait to play Hisui and Gudra. I didn't know a Pokemon could have only 2 moves. Iron Defense and Body Press. Woo! What? What do you mean it does more than Iron Press? Hold up. Let me get on Pokemon Showdown's Team Builder and investigate this matter myself. Ah, okay. I guess it has other moves. And you can run Assault Vest, 4 attacks, or a Physical Curse set, or some other strange set if you want to. Go ahead. I mean, when you actually have usable defenses, utility in Toxic and Knockoff, any ounce of recovery in Drain Punch, priority in Shadow Sneak, the ability to threaten poison with any physical attack, and only one weakness, you're bound to be a good Pokemon. It isn't really hard to figure out why people like to use Alolan Muck. It's almost like this is a solid Pokemon with solid things going for it. Of course, I like to try to use Curse, Knockoff, Drain Punch, and Poison Jab, because I like gimmicky sweepers. Galarian Corsola is the gatekeeper here, because with its Eviolite set, it's actually an incredibly annoying threat that can be a nuisance for long periods of time thanks to its insane bulk, access to Will-O-Wisp and Strength Sap, alongside being able to run 2 moves on practically whatever it wants. Yeah, it's a victim of Knockoff, but that's just how things go. I think that this Pokemon is better than most regional variants on principle, and deserves to be brought up even if it isn't fully evolved. Now, the phenomenal category. Ah yes, Hisuian Typhlosion. Something that I have come to love, albeit through a lot of persuasion and sheer propaganda. Wait, hold on a second. You aren't Typhlosion. Oh, you thought you could get the jump on me with your illusion ability. Plus your excellent typing with 3 immunities and only 1 weakness. And 125 special attack, 110 speed, and excellent special attacking move pool. Well, you may have fooled everyone else, but you won't fool me. Hisuian Typhlosion is definitely gonna be a favorite of mine to use. Choice Scarf or Specs Terrafire Eruption in the sun. But this time, Instead of 109 special attack and 100 speed, it's 119 special attack and 95 speed. Also, Frisk lets you check the opposing Pokemon's item, and Burnout is very spammable when you're Terra Fire, and it gets Burnout if you play National decks. In Standard play, stick with Eruption and Flamethrower, of course. Strong Infernal Parade is nice too on Toxic Spikes teams, but the bread and butter here is the nuclear levels of firepower. Hisuian Arcanine is a menace, a criminal, a masked marauder. He poisoned our water supply, burned our crops, and brought a plague onto our houses. Okay, maybe he didn't do all that, but he did Choice Scarf Head Smash his way through one of my defensive checks, and I'm not particularly happy about it. And if he isn't doing that, he's threatening stuff like Extreme Speed, Flare Blitz, Wild Charge, and I guess Stealth Rock if you like to play lame Arcanine. Why don't I just get better and play around it? Good question. Next. For what it's worth, Galarian Weezing should probably be higher on this list, given that it's an amazing physical wall with access to Pain Split, Will-O-Wisp, Defog, 2 really good abilities, and a pretty good defensive typing. It's unironically a really good Pokemon and a solid check to physically offensive threats. It just isn't higher up on the list because I found myself finding more use in the other options, and I am probably overvaluing Hisuian Lilligant. This is arguably one of the best Trick Room Pokemon ever created. Thick Club to double Alolan Marowak's attack stat, alongside Rockhead to make sure those Flare Blitz have 0 recoil, and Shadow Bone for Ghost Stab. It's a great cleaner on Trick Room teams, and that alone puts it right here as the gatekeeper for Phenomenal. They made a physical version of Quiver Dance in the form of Victory Dance, and I think that's going to be enough to put Hisuian Lilligant in this section of the ranking. It's definitely frail, and base 105 attack and speed isn't perfect. I still see potential for it to make waves though. Access to Hustle and a solid move pool will make it a great cleaner. I just wish they gave it Drain Punch. Sinistcha is a very boring Pokemon to fight, but it turns out that having Heat Proof turns Grass Ghost into a real typing, and Terra Water turns it into a yawn-inducing opponent that will sit there and Strength Sap, Calm Mind, what you gotcha, Strength Sap, Calm Mind, what you gotcha, oh geez dude, I think I'm getting kinda woozy. Might actually pass out. Galarian Moltres is probably one of the better special attackers the game has to offer. Despite only 100 special attack, the ability Berserk gives it a 50% special attack increase when it hits 50% HP or lower. This, combined with agility, nasty plot, and sometimes the item weakness policy, Fiery Wrath and Air Slash become very powerful moves to spam. Galarian Zapdos is just really strong. Defiant makes the use of Defog or Intimidate a risky gamble. It has great attack and speed, access to U-turn for pivoting, close combat and Brave Bird for stab, taunt to invalidate walls, bulk up for setup, and last I checked, it will be receiving Trailblaze as well. It can run a variety of sets, although the Choice Scarf set is very popular. Clodsire. One of the best special tanks. Must I say more? It gets every hazard but Sticky Web, 2 amazing abilities in Unaware and Water Absorb, and can offset its low physical bulk with Curse if you want to. Its game plan is simple, but it's very neat. Gen 9 OU wouldn't be the same without this beautiful piece of mud. Galarian Slowking is an excellent support Pokemon. It makes great use of Chilly Reception to pivot out, Regenerator to keep it healthy while switching out, an expansive move pool, and access to Thunder Wave and Toxic in a game where Toxic isn't as widely distributed anymore. It's absolutely worth using. This is one of the Pokemon where they took something I considered to be bad and they made it actually good. Hisuian Samurott with Ceaseless Edge laying down spikes every time it attacks, along with the ability Sharpness to boost it up by 50%, and then throw Aqua Cutter on top of that, plus access to Swords Dance and Sucker Punch? Yeah, massive upgrade here. Sneasler could definitely be higher if it had access to Ice Punch and Knockoff, but alas, It has amazing attack and speed, with 130 attack making it the strongest physical poison type so far. 120 speed gives it excellent sweeping potential as well. This, combined with Unburden and Poison Touch being great abilities, and Dire Claw, Gunk Shot, and Close Combat being amazing, Sneasler is a force to be reckoned with. We've covered Alolan Ninetales before, so I'll keep this concise. Base 109 speed, Snow Warning, and Auroraville makes it absurdly good support that creates very hard to break offense teams. Now we head into the potentially ban-worthy, if not already banned category. I've covered this on the Ice-type video, so I'll keep this rather brief. Galarian Darmanitan is obscenely broken with its ability to use Guerrilla Tactics and a choice item to just hit very strong, nigh unwallable attacks. Yeah, it has weaknesses, but those weaknesses are minuscule compared to its massive advantages. Basque Legion, specifically the male variant, has to be one of the most utterly atrocious Pokemon I have ever seen. It gets Swift Swim if you want a Rain Sweeper, Adaptability if you want to hit even harder instead, and it has access to the move Last Respects, which starts at base 50 power and gains an additional 50 power for each fainted party member. Imagine, per se, a base 300 Ghost move bumped by Stab and Adaptability to make it base 600, and then add a Terra on top of that into Ghost, which I believe makes it, I don't know, just 900.
The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you.
And to offset its meager 78 base speed, Choice Scarf is perfect. If you don't want to use Choice Scarf, Swift Swim and Rain, at the cost of less power, makes it more consistent. Last Respects is banned partially because of this Pokemon, but good lord, running into it in random battles is hell sometimes. Well, that wraps up every regional variant ranked weakest to strongest. What'd you guys think? Do you agree with this list, or do you think differently? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, as well as tell me what you consider to be the strongest regional variant. With that said, I'll see you guys real soon.